Hi everyone, it's Tracy here with VegeCooking Camden. As promised, I am here to bring you a healthy, time-saving, delicious breakfast that everyone in your family is sure to love because it is customizable. All right, I promised you a simple formula, and so I'm going to start by sharing my screen to show you that real quickly. All right, so basically we're talking about overnight oats, guys, and this is the basic formula. We will touch back on that later, but I will also post it along with the video, okay? So a few tips before we get started making it. The main ingredients in our breakfast are oats and chia seeds. Chia seeds are not absolutely necessary, but they are a great additive. Oats have 13% of your daily fiber in just a quarter of a cup. And chia is going to add even more protein as well as omega-3 fatty acids, and oats and chia both have lots of fiber as well to help with that digestion, to help you feel satiated and fuller longer. So overnight oats are one of the best things you can have for breakfast. Make it a few minutes after dinner, stick it in the fridge, and it cooks while you sleep. So in the morning you can grab and go. You can eat them cold, you can eat them hot. I know I was really excited when I found overnight oats. I love eating oatmeal in the winter, but once it gets hot, I don't want a hot breakfast. Overnight oats gives you that ability. So you can either make it in a large bowl, put several servings in a large bowl for your family, and then dip it out in the morning. Or what I really like to do to really make it grab and go is to put it in a jar. And I have different colored jars, different shaped jars, and jars that have different lids. And so if you have a family, every jar that looks like this can be Bobby's, and every jar that looks like this can be Susie's, and every jar that looks like this can be mine. Or you can even, write names on it. If you have all the jars that look the same, just write your name on the lid. And so these are fully customizable. Obviously, if you're making it in a bowl, you would have it all the same, but you can make several bowls. But I like making it in the jars. You could even put, Susie Monday, Susie Tuesday, Susie Wednesday, whatever the case may be. So you can make you can make breakfast in just a few minutes after dinner for the whole family, or even for the whole week. And so we're going to get started. And as I said, our main ingredient is oats. Now I have this handy dandy little thing here that kind of helps me get all the oats in the jar without making a mess, because I'm really good at making a mess. And you can either use just rolled oats, you can use a combination of rolled oats and steel cut oats. You can really use any grain that you would like. Today I'm running just a little low. I'm going to do a half a serving of oats, which is a quarter of a cup of rolled oats. And then I'm going to do 1/8 of a cup, which is a half a serving of the steel cut oats, into each jar. This just helps me, like I said, it helps me not make a mess, but not necessary. You can just take a little bit extra, a few extra seconds and not make a mess. There you go. All right. The next thing you are going to want to do is a teaspoon of either chia seed or ground flaxseed, or you can even use a half a teaspoon of both. But to make it simple, I'm just using a teaspoon of chia. And that's just going to help with the texture and how thick or thin it is. So chia seeds, awesome superfoods there. All right, let's take a quick look at the formula again. And notice, so we have half a cup of rolled oats. The next ingredient is 1/2 to 1 cup of liquid of choice. We're going to come back to that. I like to put everything in first before the liquid, but then we're going to have 1 teaspoon of chia or ground flax, or half and half, 1 tablespoon of any nut or seed, and that, in fact, you can even do a nut or seed butter. And I'm going to do 3 different recipes here to show you some different options. Then 2 tablespoons of dried fruit, and up to 1/2 cup of fruit of choice. And you have a lot of options as well. Now, I also always like to put miso in mine because that's going to add a lot of probiotics. So I'm just going to put in about a half a teaspoon. This is not necessary, but I count it as required in my basic recipe. That tap method, get it all out there. All right, so some organic miso. And then we're going to add some different flavorings as well. Sweetener choice is up to you. When I put one of my protein powders in that are already sweetened, I will not add sweetener. So I'm actually going to put protein powder in 2 of them, and I'm going to leave it out of one, and we're going to sweeten with honey. But it can be honey, agave, maple syrup, coconut sugar, whatever sweetener you prefer. Okay, so we're going to do our 2 tablespoons of nuts or seeds. So I have some pumpkin seeds here that are going to go in my first jar. And then I could use sunflower seeds, but I decided to show you guys something a little different. So this time I'm going to use sun butter, because you can also use a nut or seed butter if you don't want to use the actual, or don't have the actual nut or seed. And one of the things I really like about sun butter is that you can just kind of pour it in there. And so there it goes. All right, so any kind of nut or seed butter, almond butter, cashew butter, for that matter, almond, cashews, peanut butter, it is your choice. For the last jar, I am going to just have a handful of pecans. Now these are whole pecans, so I'm just going to take a moment to break them apart into the jar, because I don't really want to, well, I'd be okay to bite into a whole pecan, but I want more in every bite. So little pieces are going to ensure that I get some in every bite. All right, so you can see how this is totally customizable. If Susie doesn't like pecans, she can pick a different nut or seed. You know, and if she's feeling like walnuts today, but almonds tomorrow, she can do whatever she wants in her jar. See, just a few more. And benefit of being a chef, you get to taste as you go. All right. So I'm making 3 different recipes here. Again, you can make them all the same. You can make them all different. It's really up to you. But I basically have like a little, almost like a breakfast bar set up here. Kind of like a salad bar with all my different options. So that they can, a few minutes after dinner, you just set it all out, let everybody fill their jar, and then we'll talk about what you do after it's filled. And then you'll be cleaning up for dinner and you'll be good to go. All right, well, that's done. The next thing is 2 tablespoons of a dried fruit. So I've got some raisins. And again, this can be any dried fruit. They are drying just about anything these days. But today I'm going to put in raisins in my first jar. I'm going to put craisins or dried cranberries in my second jar. And then I also have some dried apples that I'm going to put in my third jar, because I like apples and pecans mixed together. All right, but again, it can be whatever dried fruit you have. Blueberries, peaches, mangoes, coconut, your call. And these are a little bit larger, kind of like the pecans. So I'm just going to crumble those up just a little bit. Try not to make a mess here. And I want about 2 tablespoons. If I get all the way on the bottom, there's already some that are crumbled. That one's a little large, but there we go. All right. Now you heard they were a little bit crunchy, but they are going to soften up because we're going to add liquid, and then we're going to put them in the refrigerator. All right. The last thing that you may choose to add is some sort of fresh whole fruit. So I have a little bit of pear that I chopped up that I'm going to put in my first jar, about 1/4 to half a cup. And in my last jar, I'm going to put some coconut, but in the middle jar, I'm not going to put any fruit. Now, I wouldn't want a half a cup of coconut, just a little bit. Right. And the last step before we add our milk is going to be any type of flavoring. Now, I love adding cinnamon, to all of my overnight oats because cinnamon has great blood sugar leveling properties and and anti-inflammatory properties as well. You can measure it out, or you can just put it in there. You can do vanilla, you can do nutmeg. The options are really limitless. It's really just depending on what you have in your cabinet and in your fridge. So next, I am going to add a little bit of protein powder to my first jar. You might have different flavors. I'm going to add a little chocolate protein powder to my last jar. Chocolate, apples, and pecans. All right. Now, you may not have protein powder, and again, that's okay. You might want to add some pumpkin. You might want to add some acai powder. You might want to add a little vanilla or a little cocoa. And if you add the cocoa, you're probably going to want at least a little bit of a sweetener. You could also add some instant coffee. You can add dandy tea, pretty much anything in a powdered form that has the flavor that you want can be added. So that's really awesome. With the awesome thing about overnight oats. So now we have the oats, we have the chia, we have the miso for our probiotic properties. We've had our nuts, we've had our dried fruit. Oh yes, I did add the flavor of my middle one. So I'm going to add a little bit of matcha tea. I really like matcha tea, and you could add this with some vanilla protein if you wanted, almost like a matcha latte. But because I'm not adding protein to this one and matcha is pretty strong, I am going to add a little local honey. So this one's going to be really good for our allergies. All right, last step, your liquid of choice. It can be any milk, it could be just water. What I personally like to do is about half and half. So this is take two. I had a little bit of technical difficulty, so I had to borrow some milk from a neighbor. Love my neighbors. So I'm going to take about a half a cup of milk into each container, and then I'm going to do a half a cup of water as well. Okay. I just like the benefit of half and half, the ease. And what I would say to you is you pick your ratio. You need to have at least as much liquid as you have oats, but I personally like a double ratio. So 1 part oats to 2 parts liquid. So now what I'm going to do is, because I have the 1 serving or half a cup of oats in there, I'm going to do an entire cup of liquid, half a cup of milk and half a cup of water in each one. I suggest, if you've never had overnight oats, take it 1 step at a time and start with half. Let it sit overnight, and in the morning you can always add more liquid. You can't take any out. So if you like thicker oats, or if you're just not sure, start with a half a cup, and then in the morning see how thick they are, see how well you like them, and decide from there how much more you want to add. All right, so let's just look at our formula one more time. And again, it will be posted, so no worries if you don't have everything down. But to a jar, we're going to add half a cup of rolled oats, 1/2 to 1 cup of liquid of choice. It could even be juice if you wanted. You know, you can like make almost like a creamsicle with orange juice and a vanilla protein powder. 1 teaspoon of chia seed, ground flaxseed, or half and half. 1 tablespoon of any nut, seed, or nut butter, seed butter of choice. 2 tablespoons of a dried fruit, up to a half a cup of chopped fresh fruit if you desire. A little miso paste for probiotics, and 1 to 2 teaspoons and up to a tablespoon of sweetener, depending on your sweet tooth and what you're adding to it. Some of the things you can add for flavor: coconut, cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, vanilla, cocoa, chocolate chips even, protein powder, or greens powder. And the most important ingredient is creativity. Get creative with what you're going to put in your overnight oats. Keep you on your toes in the morning. I grab and go. Don't always know which flavor I'm grabbing, but I always love them. So our very last step before putting the cap on is we're just going to gently stir. And the reason that I want to stir it just a little bit first is because some of the powders that I've added are on the top, and if I just go to shaking, then the powder is going to kind of stick to the top of the jar. If I put it a little bit and then top it, then I won't have that problem. So stir it up, cap it off. Make sure you got the right cap if you have names on them or whatever it is to be. Then shake, shake, shake. And I say do this after dinner because you got all the dishes everywhere and everything. Put this out, get everything ready for in the morning, and then I find it best if I stir everything up, shake it up, and then about 30 minutes to an hour later, go back in and stir or shake one more time. So if you do it right after dinner, everybody participates, they make their own, you shake it up, we're going to store it in the refrigerator, then we're going to clean up the kitchen, and by the time we're done cleaning up the kitchen, then it should be just about time to give it a good stir and shake again, okay? So what's really cool is because I had to do 2 takes today, I do have sort of a, not a finished product, but one that has been in the refrigerator a little bit longer. You can see this is very, very liquidy right now, but as it sits, it's going to thicken. So I've given each of them a really good shake. I want to make sure, kind of turn it upside down, make sure the cap is on, turn it upside down, make sure all the stuff is actually off of the bottom, because sometimes the oats kind of stick there and then you kind of get this sludgy mess in the morning, but they're all there. So now let me take one out of the fridge and show you how it has thickened. Now, this hasn't been in the fridge long enough, but it has thickened up a bit, and it'll be even thicker in the morning. So now you can kind of see it's much thicker. And so after about 4 to 8 hours, it's going to be just about right for me. And if it's too thick in the morning, that's when I can add a little more milk or a little bit more water. Just make sure you measure how much you add so that you'll know when you make them the next time what you want to add in the jar itself. So there we go. Breakfast for the whole family, possibly breakfast for the week. It's grab and go. It's made in just a few minutes. It's super nutritious. It's super filling, and you get to decide what you put in it. You get to decide what you put in yours. Everyone else can decide what they put in theirs. You could even, make it fun and make like a list of all the toppings and let them check it off. But the base is oats. Highly recommend the chia seed or the ground flaxseed to be added as well. And then just have fun with it. Whether you're making it in a large bowl to dip up or putting it in the jars to grab and go, this breakfast is going to keep you full and it is going to nourish you for your day. I hope you enjoyed seeing this very useful, practical way to make breakfast for your family. Let me know what combinations you make, and see you next time. Happy cooking.